Have you ever seen one of those big steel shipping containers and thought, could someone actually live in that? Well, the answer is a big, loud yes. Today, we're going to break down exactly how these industrial boxes are being transformed into some really amazing, affordable, and honestly pretty stylish homes.
You know, it might seem like a crazy leap, but turning a 40-foot steel box into a warm, inviting home like this one, it's way more achievable than you might think. And this isn't just a niche idea, it's a movement that's popping up all over the globe.
Okay, so that brings up the big question, right? How do you actually do it? I mean, it's one thing to see the beautiful finished photos, but it's a whole other thing to understand the nuts and bolts of the process. And that's what we're here for. We're going to walk through it step by step.
So here's our game plan. We've broken the whole thing down into 5 phases. We'll start with the super important paperwork, then we'll get our hands dirty prepping the site, move on to cutting the steel, tackle the make-or-break insulation, and finally put on all those finishing touches that make it a home.
All right, phase 1. Now, before you even dream of buying a container or picking up a power tool, we have to talk about pre-construction. This is all about the paperwork, and trust me, getting this right is, without a doubt, the most crucial part of the entire build.
Look, I know this seems like the boring stuff, but this is your most important investment, period. Getting those permit-ready plans, having an engineer sign off on them, securing your local permits, and getting site surveys done, this is what saves you from just massive headaches and wallet-crushing mistakes down the road.
Okay, so once all that paperwork is sorted, we get to move on to phase 2. Now it's time to actually get outside, get your hands dirty, and prepare the land for your container's big arrival.
So every home needs a solid base, and a container home is no different. You can go with traditional concrete footings, sure, but what's really cool about the container world is all the innovation. I mean, in some places, builders have even used old tires, just stacked them up and filled them with concrete. How resourceful is that? And often, it's free.
And here's a pro tip, a little detail that makes a huge difference. You need to put a damp course membrane between your foundation and the container. It's a simple, thin layer that stops moisture from creeping up, which prevents rust. This one small step can add years, even decades, to the life of your home.
Now we get to the really dramatic part, phase 3. This is where that industrial box truly starts to look and feel like a house. It's all about cutting and shaping that steel to create the space you're going to live in.
Now, instead of just hacking out huge sections of the container wall and throwing them away, we're going to talk about a really slick technique called the zipper cut. And believe me, this is an absolute game changer for saving time, money, and materials. So check this out. Here's how it works. You make a very precise cut along the wall, but you leave it attached at the top and bottom, almost like a hinge. This lets you take that entire section of corrugated steel and carefully bend it inward into the container. Now, that piece you just folded in, that's not scrap. You weld it into place and bam, you've got an instant interior wall. You've literally just created a room divider for free and you've actually added structural strength back into the building. It's brilliant.
And here you can see the result. You can create these massive, wide-open spaces that connect multiple containers, all without weakening the structure and without creating a giant pile of scrap metal. It is just an incredibly clever and efficient way to build. Okay, deep breath, because we have arrived at what is hands down the single most important and often the most expensive part of the whole build, insulation. If you get this wrong, your dream home will be completely unlivable.
This quote really says it all, doesn't it? A steel box is basically a perfect temperature conductor. It will absolutely bake you in the summer and feel like a freezer in the winter. So proper insulation isn't some luxury add-on, it's the core technology that makes these homes work.
So what's the solution? Well, the expert consensus really points to one thing: closed-cell spray foam. It's this 2-part mixture that expands the second it hits the wall, and it creates this seamless, airtight barrier. This not only stops the heat and cold, but also prevents condensation, that dreaded container rain, from forming on the inside.
But here's the key, and this might surprise you. Where you apply the foam is crucial. The most effective way is to spray it on the outside of the container. Why? Because this takes the metal shell itself completely out of the temperature equation. The sun heats the foam, not the steel. It's what keeps the inside stable and comfortable.
We've done it. We've planned it, we've laid the foundation, we've cut the steel, we've insulated the shell. Now, in our final phase, phase 5, we get to turn that prepared structure into a real, honest-to-goodness home.
And this is where all the things you'd recognize from a normal home build come into play.
A proper roof gets built over the container, you run all your plumbing and electrical, you add siding to the outside to protect that foam, and you install all the interior finishes that really make a house feel like a home.
You see, once that shell is totally sealed and insulated, the inside is basically a blank canvas. The interior sealing also gets a nice thick layer of that same spray foam before everything is finished with drywall, paint, flooring, just like any other house.
So, after all that, what are the biggest lessons here? First, plan everything meticulously. Those permits and engineering stamps, they're non-negotiable. Second, do not skimp on insulation. It is the heart of the project. And third, get creative. Use clever tricks like that zipper cut to save money and reduce waste.
Which really just leaves us with one final question. Looking at this whole process, seeing how it all comes together from a simple steel box, could you see yourself living in one of these?
As we all keep searching for ways to build that are more affordable and more sustainable, it's pretty exciting to think that for a lot of people, the future of housing might just come in a box.